There we go. So this is Mindfulness Practice Group, and it's wonderful to see you all. It is February the 10th um, of what I'm still getting used to, 2024 as opposed to 2023. And so we'll start with the sitting. Please arrange yourself in your space, however it is you need to do that. Most of this time we'll spend in silence, but I'll walk us in this morning with a little something. You're free to use this time however you wish. My comments at the beginning are just an invitation, but please do whatever practice it is you are used to doing today. We'll sit for about 20 minutes. So we sit. We sit for a bunch of different reasons. As you are adjusting yourself this morning and coming back into your body, as you're inviting more awareness of your posture, as you're choosing the expression you'd like your body to take for the next few minutes. It's sometimes nice to ask yourself why you sit. We sit for many different reasons. Whenever we meet together like this, I'm always struck by what seems a very significant event. The event of people choosing to sit. Choosing to sit in community. I always wonder at it. And I always have curiosity. What motivates someone to sit up straight in the middle of their life? To let it come, to let it be. And to choose for a few precious moments to face it squarely. See it and feel it and be with it. That always feels significant to me. So whenever you show up, part of me is surprised and filled with a kind of awe. Because it strikes me as a miraculous thing. That instead of fighting and running and hiding and trying to change and control, that I have people in my life who will show up and sit up and say yes the best they can. So the way it really is. Right now. There's a grace to that I don't understand, but I am grateful to all of you for offering that to me again this morning. I'll ring the bell next to me. As I do, we'll sit together for a few more minutes in silence. I'll ring it again to end. And between those bell strikes, you can offer yourself the miracle of the yes. And please know that I have great gratitude that you are choosing to do that today. It is an offering to many beings, and you are included in them. So I thank you.
All right, cool. You can still hear me? Hot dog. Okay. I think this works a little bit better for. Uh, the healing of the purr needs to be on a shirt. Yes, it does. That's a good merch idea for Leah. Okay, my friends. So, um, what we're doing today is we're going to talk a little bit about shame and anger. My preface here is in the last newsletter, maybe the newsletter before that. That I sent out. I said, "Hey, give me suggestions. I mean, I can keep inventing stuff for us to talk about and explore forever, but I'm really curious about what's on people's minds if there's stuff that you really want to spend some time with." And I'm grateful to those of you who wrote in and said, "Hey, let's play with this. Let's play with that. Let's play with this." And if stuff occurs to you, even today, if stuff occurs to you, oh, I'd love to spend some time with that, send it off. I'm always really happy uh, to entertain suggestions. And so now I have a list because people wrote in some ideas. And the very first thing that I'm going to kind of try to do them in the order that people wrote them in, unless another pattern kind of evolves. But one of the first things people asked about was the emotions of anger and shame. Let's spend more time with anger and shame. There's certainly things we've talked about in this setting before. They're very, very common emotions to talk about in meditation settings, mindfulness settings, because they're omnipresent. They're all the time, and we find them so afflictive. So it makes sense. So we're going to talk about that. And as I was making my list from all the suggestions that people offered, I was like, wow, people are offering like powerful emotions. They're offering stuff like how reactive they get when they look at their news feed, politics, that kind of stuff, politics, global warming, world events, the war, religion. I want to talk about religion. Like, what is that? What is that about? Like, geez, I want to talk about. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, well, all people are sending me is all the stuff that we were socialized to not talk about. Whatever you do when you meet them, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion, don't talk about sports or whatever, And I started thinking, oh, this is kind of funny. We're just going to go out of our way now every single month to talk about something we've been forbidden to talk about at the dinner table when our relatives visit or whatever. And so then I thought, that'll be our ongoing series. Our ongoing series is anything that you're forbidden: sex, drugs, rock and roll, all the stuff you've been forbidden from talking about. Because all of that stuff is part of the shadow, right? Why don't we talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll? Why don't we talk about shame and anger? Why don't we talk about religion? Why don't we talk about politics? Well, we know why. It's because in a family setting, it's likely to cause conflict. People have different experiences, and it's likely to, grandma's going to get upset if you talk about da, 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 da. So what I'm aware of is, jokes aside, the list of things we're not supposed to talk about is the list of stuff that we don't want to be in relationship with internally, right? I appreciate that it has a divisive potential externally, right? If we're going to sit and talk about politics. But internally, there's a shadow component to it, right? There's something about it that we're not in relationship with. And you kind of go, oh, yeah. And we're naming so much of what we're naming there are institutions and patterns and defenses that we have really mixed feelings about, right? Things we have really mixed feelings about. And so we're going to start with some big ones today. We're in no way going to explore anger and shame thoroughly because it's not possible to do in 2 hours or whatever. But we want to just plant the seeds of curiosity, just like we do when we're on the cushion. I just want to maybe see one thing that I haven't seen before, perhaps one way in which it shows up for me as an individual that I didn't notice before, and try to meet that with some acceptance, some willingness. We know we're looking at very big patterns. And so as we jump into this today, I encourage you to remember that our focus in this group is to connect ourselves to our own experience, right? We want Suzanne to be more connected to Suzanne, right? We want Cynthia to be more connected to Cynthia. This is an internal process, mindfulness, right? In and down, internal, internal, internal. But it's also good to remember whatever the dynamic is that we see, whatever it is that we discover in terms of narratives, social messaging, whatever the emotion is that we become more connected to or more aware of, we can promise ourselves, I'm not alone in this one. It'll be unique to us because we all have a particular karma. We all have a particular life, right? My experience of being alive is going to be different than Jamie's experience of being alive because we're separate beings. But what is also true is, and especially when we're looking at something like anger and shame, these are universal human experiences. And so my variation might be ever so slightly mine, but I am looking at something that I promise you 8 billion right now, I think is the number. Isn't that how many of us there are running around? The two-leggeds on this planet? I think it's 7.5 or 8 billion. 8 billion of us have the very same dynamic. So you're not alone. The only difference is you want to notice it and you want to explore it and you're willing. Right? And most people are not. Most people are not aware of it. Right? And so they continue to live in the dark in that way. I'm being motivated by these things every day, but I don't know that I'm being motivated by them. So we will start with shame and anger. And here's my question for all of you. And I'm actually throwing this out. I want to hear what you think. We'll do anger and then we'll do shame. We'll sort of explore whether or not we think there's a connection. But I just want to kind of get the ball rolling here by asking us what anger is. What is the thing we're calling anger? And does it have a function? Anybody have any thoughts on that? How do we define what it is? And is there any purpose to it? Is there a reason that it's there? Anybody have a sense of why it is, what it is, and why it is? Even top level, very high level. Suzanne, give us a guess. Go for it. No wrong answers.
Very top level, like on an evolutionary standpoint, I think we the physical thing that we are needed anger and fear for protective purposes. Like if something's rustling in the bushes, if we don't get scared and run, we could get eaten. Or if we get cornered, we have to have anger to fight our way out. So I think on a physical level, evolutionarily, we needed it for that.
Okay, so anger as galvanizing, focusing, motivating, right? An energetic connection to
as a
ourselves
yeah,
as a defense.
like a defensive mechanism.
Yes, that's a great
Like
start.
pulling our hand off of a hot stove, or don't get too close to the fire because you'll catch on fire. It's like that.
Okay, so
But
the biological component of anger is adrenaline, focus, power, right? Eyes dilate, muscles contract, adrenaline shoots through. This is lizard brain. So it's the survival function of the emotion of anger. And we're not talking about fear this week, but you're definitely pointing to it almost always follows the experience of fear. Usually fear first and then anger. Fear, anger. You can feel the two. Cool. Other folks, other thoughts. What other function? Oh, Rachel, what you got? Oh,
I would say, like kind of what Suzanne is saying, like just leading somebody to act, I guess. Like anger leads to activism. Anger, say children are being abused, or, that's just an example. It leads you to make difference, like yeah, I mean,
yeah.
acting to fix a problem.
Yeah. Motivation,
Hmm.
desire to change, desire to alter circumstances.
Yeah.
Perfectly said. That makes perfect sense. Other folks, what other function does it have? Any other function you can think of? Mike.
Well, I think it's in a similar way too. It's kind of an alert that you've been intruded upon. It's
Oh, a
some
boundary thing.
something about the way your values and yourself has been somehow kind of rubbed wrong or pushed, and you have this kind of response to it that kind of sends this alert that it's like, wait a second, this isn't right. What's happening doesn't fit with what I believe and who I am, and so you get aroused by it. And then like what Rachel said, it's kind of a call to action. It's like, okay, what do I do with that? Do I avoid it? Do I just go away from it? Or do I do something about it? And does it activate me to take some kind of action?
All right. So now, good. We started with kind of the biological level of just the emotion that we call fear turning into galvanizing, focusing, that what Suzanne was talking about, just physiologically what it does to our system. Then Rachel refined it into, this is a call to action, movement, agency, change. Now Mike is introducing, because he said values. And he said intruded upon. Now we're talking about boundaries, and we're in Homo sapiens. Can you feel it? That's awesome. Homo sapiens. Why didn't we evolve out of anger when we stopped being in peril from tigers? We should have evolved out of anger. No, because we're big and complicated. And Mike said, I'm being intruded upon, or my values are being intruded upon. Ooh, that's unique to our species, folks. Our cats do not have that problem. But we see something, and Rachel's example is great. Like, what if I see other people being harmed? What if I see injustice? What if I see suffering being inflicted on the innocent, and I experience anger? This is me being intruded upon. My sense of right and wrong, my values. Can you feel how personal that is? That's interior. That is personal. So now we're talking about boundaries. Mike said, red alert. My body is telling me something isn't correct here. Something isn't correct here. I'm trying to get your attention because to some degree we're being violated upon. We're being violated, right? A boundary is being crossed. Something isn't right here. You need to investigate what this is, right? So an attention grabber, the red alert function, and something around boundaries and justice. Justice is boundaries, but does that make sense to folks? Can you feel how it's getting a little more sophisticated? Pretty cool. Okay, any other thoughts before we shift gears here? These are great. This is exactly what we were hoping for. Cynthia.
I think that sometimes it's like for anger, it's like for me, it's like, sometimes it's like trying to, I know this is not, I'll just say it badly here, but
Yeah.
trying to protect my shame, which it doesn't. But of course, it's like someone accuses you of something, and And let's say you did it or whatever, and you go, no, and then you attack, or, it's that defense for psychological. I can't hear it. I don't want to hear it. I gotta, protect my ego, protect whatever it is psychologically because I can't handle it. That's what I
Yes. Dead on. See, these therapists people, they're just, aren't they? They're suspicious. I see Jamie. Look at that. There. Now she's being, my boundaries are being violated. Somebody tell that bald guy to shut up. Oh, I love you all. Yes. Isn't that interesting? So the internal mechanism she's talking about, and we're going to get there because we're going to talk about shame at least a little bit today. We're actually saying the same thing again of like, wait, there is some way in which I am being made to feel vulnerable, exposed, right? Connected to something I don't want to be connected to, in this case, internally shame. And so anger shows up as this is the defense against that. So this is Suzanne's example with the animals, Rachel's example with injustice, Mike's example with boundary. It's can you feel the pattern starting to emerge? So here's what's cool. We'll shift gears. Everything that you have all just listed, and I know a lot of you have got other thoughts going on in your head, everything that you've just listed is useful, is it not? It's useful. Is it not? Isn't that interesting? So we're talking about anger, and everybody's just listed something that's very, very useful. In other words, you've all had no problem as a group saying, oh yeah, there's a reason that this thing exists. It's really helpful. It's really useful. It has a function that is of value to all of us. Wow. I'm so glad that that's how we're starting. That's what I was hoping for. So as we further our little investigation into the thing we call anger, remember, we are investigating a friend. You have just named it as such. This is a really helpful thing. I need this. This is an important function. Suzanne's example of like, taking your hand off the stove. Like, pain, I hate pain. I wish pain was gone. You're like, no, you don't. No, you really don't. You might think you wish pain was gone, but you really, really don't. You need it. Otherwise, your hand's on the stove and you're in trouble, and you don't know that you're in trouble. So in all of you just described, there is a thing that is trying to get my attention. There's a thing that's trying to get my attention, and it's important. We need that. So thank God we're curious about it, right? Thank God we are curious about it. What is that? I want to know more about that. Okay, cool. Now, so we've just answered my next questions. I'm looking at my notes now. Does it have a purpose? We've already found at least some of that. There's much, much more we could say about it. Is fear an enemy? Would we be better without it? Those are rhetorical questions because we've answered them. But I'm going to say it out loud anyway because this is a meditation group, and this is one of the biggest things we hear in meditation groups in Buddhism, outside of Buddhism, in churches and synagogues and temples and mosques all over the world. As soon as we move all of our normal human experience into the spiritual realm, as soon as we do that, a whole bunch of stuff that's perfectly fine out here becomes forbidden in here, and vice versa. This is not a problem of either of these systems. It's a problem of us not being integrated. What do I mean? What I mean is, if you hang out at meditation centers, especially Buddhist meditation centers, you figure out pretty quickly that anger is like the devil. And so it's very, very easy if we don't understand the teaching correctly. It's very, very easy to go, if I am feeling anger, it, number one, should not be there. It is not my friend. It is an enemy. It has no function. It has no purpose other than to lead me to sin or break the precepts or whatever we call it. And then we will go a little bit further and say there must be something wrong with me for having it. So what we're talking about here is relationship. We're not going to say, this emotion that I have is a bad thing that shouldn't be there. We've just got through asserting that that's not true. Anger not only has a function, it has a really, really important function. But what does make sense is I have to get to know it, and I have to understand it, and I want to understand particularly now, this is the uniqueness, remember, how it shows up for me and why it shows up for me. So this gets us closer to like Mike's example of like, wait, that person doing that thing, I'm noticing anger. when I'm watching that happen? Maybe I'll say that's about my values. Maybe it is about my values. I have to be pretty careful to really understand what's happening here and what my emotion is, what it's actually about. Because if I don't see that clearly, I might imagine that that other person is causing this feeling. And I might further imagine that because that person I imagine is violating my boundaries, that they deserve to be stopped in whatever way it is I find it suitable to stop them. Can you sort of see where we're going with this? That's why this needs our careful attention. We're not looking at an enemy that needs to go away. We're looking at a very powerful energy, anger. We have a sense now of why it's so powerful, because evolutionarily, going all the way back to Suzanne's example, without this, I do not get the adrenaline, I do not get the focus, I do not get the eyes, I do not get the blood rushing to the muscles. I'm not going to make it. I needed this. So there is a reason that this emotion is so large and it motivates us into action. Like Rachel said, there's a reason it's so big. It has to galvanize us, right? Wow. That just means I have to spend a lot of time getting to know it because it's big and it's fast and it's powerful. And so in my meditation practice, in my self-awareness practice, in my mindfulness practice, I want to pull this up into the light a lot. Slow it down and start to understand it. It's not an enemy, but I want to understand, how does this thing work? How does it work? What's true here and what's not true here, right? What's true here and what's not? So we know it serves a function. We know it serves a function for us as individuals. Is there any other social function, societal function that you can imagine that anger serves? Is there anything collectively that you think it does that is helpful? Can anybody think of anything there? I'm just wondering about, on the social level, is there anything that it tends to do or can do that we might think of as helpful? That's a tougher one, actually. Oh, Cynthia, go for it.
I think it can join as a group, can do a joining collective, like, the lions coming into our camp. And so we're going to collectively get angry about it and, for survival,
Yes.
or about global
Yes.
warming, or anger, it can, or, child abuse or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. It can unite the people who feel it together. And then therefore they can act as a group instead of acting as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can I don't even need to say this. We can all see the shadow of that really quickly, right?
Yes.
The fact that Cynthia is angry and I am angry at the same time, that's not actually connection between us. That's not actually intimacy, but it kind of feels like it, because it kind of feels like we're having the very same experience at the very same time. And we're going to be much more effective, the two of us working together to move toward the thing, whatever the thing is. Why am I naming that? I'm naming that because, well, it's an election year and you see it over and over and over and over. If I plant seeds of anger in this crowd, they will feel unified and they will do the one thing, right? So you can see the darkness of that, and you can also at least potentially see the lightness of that. I'm only naming it temporarily. I don't want to get lost on this little in the weeds here. What I don't want to say is that's intimacy. It is not. I'm only saying there's a reason that we express anger publicly in those settings, because it acts like a community maker. We are all pissed about whaling, and so we all get on the da-da-da and we do the Greenpeace thing. Or we're all pissed about the immigrants at the border, and so we all get in our vans and right? You can feel that it has a socialization component. It's a community. It doesn't actually foster intimate. We're not talking about soul here. We're just talking about behavioral. This is like animals. We're all angry at the attacker, so we form up and we ward off the attacker. I'm only mentioning this because for a lot of us, we've experienced anger being a forbidden emotion. You're not allowed to have it, and you're not allowed to show it. You're not allowed to have it, and you're not allowed to show it. That's pretty typical. It's also important to remember, well, yeah, but there are certain socially sanctioned settings where it is okay. Oh, so that's interesting. I'm just naming the mixed messages that we got about this emotion. We all got really confusing messages about anger. Show it, don't show it. Show it here, not here. You can name it, but you can't act it out. You can act it out, but you can't name it. There's a gender piece, there's a religious piece, there's a social piece, there's an age piece. If you actually journal, and I encourage you to do that, here's all the messages that I got before the age of 10 about anger. Was it okay? Was it not okay? Did it have a function? Did it not have a function? When was it okay to say it? When was it okay not to say it? When was it okay to act it out? When was it not okay to act it out? And what were my examples? Did I have examples in my life of people who expressed anger? Or was I only given examples of people who acted out anger? Each one of these would be a paragraph. You can imagine we've gotten a lot of messages about this one. And when you start looking at those messages, you go, oh my God, they contradict themselves all over the place. It is a shit show up there. It's very, very confusing. And so even starting to look at this, you go, oh my goodness, I'm really confused. I'm really confused. And a lot of them came in church. A lot of them came in family. A lot of them came in school. A lot of them came from the media and from our friends. It's just something to look at. Okay. All right. So, now we're going to talk about shame really quickly. We're going to ask the very same questions. What is the emotion that we call shame? The emotion that we call shame. And what is its function? Why is it here? Why have Homo sapiens evolved to have an emotion? Right? An emotion. I know shame has a narrative and a story too, but just the emotion. Why have we evolved as a species to have this emotion that shows up in us that we call shame? Why is it there? Does it have a purpose? Is there a function to shame? Anybody have any thoughts on that one? Suzanne?
Here I'm going way back to the evolutionarily I think if we didn't have shame, like we wouldn't have an internal sense of right and wrong. Like I hear people say humans are the only ones who feel shame. And at the same time, when I come home from work and I find something that I've left on my little end table here on the floor, all chewed right? And I look at my dogs, I can tell which one did it.
I totally believe that. Oh, yes.
And I know that it's shame that they go, oh, that was mom's thing. Oh,
yes.
what have I done?
Oh dear. Okay, so dear Suzanne here, who is hopelessly in love with her puppers, is doing a little anthropomorphizing, but she is correct. And a lot of social scientists and animal specialists say, because Homo sapiens and canids have evolved together for the past 25,000 odd years since domestication, they've actually learned, one of the things you do when you fit in with humans is you figure out how to fit in with humans because we're pack animals. And so then we borrow shame. It's very possible. Maybe they do feel it, or at least the behavior of shame. But the larger point, thank you, Suzanne, is sense of morality. Would we say morality or ethics, right and wrong? All right. So we have shame that shows up as an emotion when we imagine or we fear that we have done something wrong. What other functions? That's a really important one. Thank you, Suzanne. What else does it do? Why else do we have it? Diane.
Okay, there. So I think it is similar but different is that is a sense of community. If we didn't have a sense of shame, we would be living in isolation. But shame keeps us in some backwards way desiring to be in community,
Yes.
connected with social beings.
That is exactly right. Thank you.
And we want to be part of something.
100% socializing. Thank you. Thank you. Jamie?
Yes. So stealing from Brene Brown, who's probably our most prominent shame researcher at this time, talking about the biological function, of caveman times, it's like, if people found out what I really did, they would not accept me. They would not want to be my friend. They would not like me. And if that was like your clan at that time and you got ostracized from your community, that could be a matter of life and death. And so we have this biological need to be accepted and for people to think that we're okay, because a long time ago, if that wasn't true, we could be put out and then that could be a matter of life and death.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. For those of you who do not know Brene Brown, get to know Brene Brown. She's the real deal. She has, just Google Brene Brown. You'll stumble all over her books and talks and papers and that kind of stuff. Thank you. So here's what we've learned, because you guys went right to it. That's what I was hoping for. And we have to take a break here in a few minutes because I need more tea. It's a universal human need: love, acceptance, food, shelter, medicine, tea. Thank you for taking us there. So we talk about it. It has an internal function as a, roughly speaking, moral compass. What's right and what is wrong, right? That's what Suzanne named. It has a socializing agent in what Diane mentioned, because together we decide what is acceptable, what is unacceptable. And so the expression or the experience of shame shows me where those boundaries are. This actually kind of goes back to what Mike was saying, like it's acceptable or unacceptable to do that thing. And why we evolved that? Well, because we're pack animals, we're prey. We evolved as prey and as pack. Prey shows us where anger shows up. I've got a lion to run away from. And pack shows us we got to stay together or we're in big trouble. We got to stay together or we're in big trouble. And what Jamie just did, thank you, with the help of our friend Brene, who never comes to these meetings. I got to text her. I don't know what, is she busy on Saturday? What's her deal? Oh, Brene. Anyway, and this is actually really important because it helps us understand why it's so damn strong. What Jamie just reminded us of is, at one point, and this is our hard wiring, right? So I have this nervous system and so do you. To not fit in means you die. That's how big of a deal it is. That's how big of a deal it is. If this clan decides you ain't cool anymore and we don't want to hang out with you, you're going to die. And literally being excommunicated means you're going to die. We're going to put you alone on that ice floe and push that thing out. You've got zero chance, right? Oh, wow. Just remember in your body, the feeling of shame, the emotion of shame is the densest one you can experience. It's significantly more difficult. Denser means than even fear, than anger, than confusion, loneliness, any other thing you can name. They all are rough, but shame is at the rock bottom. And here's why. Because what Jamie just said is there's a biological component that says to not be accepted means you're going to die. So this is a survival level thing, right? This is like when a pack decides that wolf just isn't worth keeping up with anymore, and they move on without her, and she's gonzo. But because we are Homo sapiens, remember, big fancy pants brains, we also have a sense of self. We have an ego sense of self, right? That our other mammal cousins don't have. And so Brené's teaching, which is correct, is shame means ego death. It means I don't have value. I don't belong. I don't have worth. Can you feel it? It's more than just physical for Homo sapiens. It's about my value. It's about my value. Am I lovable? Am I worth? Do I belong? Can you feel it? This is about our worth because we have a sense of self. It's, my body too. At one point, those were not separable, but now they are. And so it's really important to honor the fact, we are the only species that experiences this, at least the way that we do, because we have an ego self. We have a sense of self that is separate from the body. And so to have people look at us and go, oh, you wore that is a small example. Is my survival at stake? No, I'm not going to die because the other kids in school think that I'm wearing a dorky outfit. But they are going to make me sure, they're going to make sure that I know, you don't fit in with us. and I'm going to experience a thing called shame. This is about my value. And so inside, my whole body's going to change and my blood pressure is going to change and all that other stuff. And I'm going to have all the thoughts that come with that around, oh God, I'm such a piece of, can you feel it? We all know this. Lord, I am not worthy to receive you. Okay. Shame, 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 shame. And like Cynthia said, I'm going to have a really hard time feeling that because that's the worst thing in the world. It's the worst thing in the world. And so I am going to defend against having that experience myself. And one of my very, very, very favorite ways of doing it, because I'm Homo sapiens, is right? So the kids that just made fun of me for wearing the dorky pants, they are now my enemy. I hate her. I just hate her. Her and her friends are all so bitchy. Can you feel it? That behavior is going to go out. But really what it reflects is, I'm attacking myself and I'm trying to get away from that feeling. Wow. So we've finally arrived at, you can see how these two things, they're very separate emotions, folks. We can experience shame without anger. We can experience anger without shame, but boy, that's a pretty rare one. We're starting to get a sense of how often they interrelate and how often, to use Mike's example, your values are different than mine, that's actually projected shame. Sometimes it is just really somebody doing like Rachel's, child endangerment example, right? That's not about my shame. But 9 times out of 10, when I'm imagining that your actions are violating my boundaries and making me feel a certain way, if I follow the breadcrumb trail, it's going to lead me back to my own thing. And it's going to be shame. Lots to think about here. Okay. So before we take our break, I'm going to send you off with a little assignment. We're going to take 10, go to the bathroom, get yourself some more tea, and then I want to play with something, and we're going to, but here's the seed I want to plant. In your own mind, as you're just taking your 10, we're just going to take 10. Ask yourself, to the best of your ability, ask yourself what messages you guys got about this stuff. Just on a personal level now. We've talked socially, we've talked big picture species, but just personally, just you, between you and your own heart, what do you remember? What messages do you remember getting about being angry and about shame? And they probably did not use words. They probably were not direct. They probably didn't name emotions. Most childhoods do not involve those things. So we're asking ourselves, what kind of messages did I get about what I needed to do when I felt shame? What it meant about me when I was angry? Right? Those might be true things or not true things, but we're trying to figure out what, at the very top level, what is my relationship with these feelings? Because you know where we're going with this. When these things show up, we want to be curious about them. We want to be curious about them. And so we're going to have to say yes to the fact that at least they're there. So we want to start by noticing, what messaging have I gotten that it so instinctively causes me to push these two experiences away? Okay, so just kind of do a little asking. What did I get? What was I given about anger? And what was I given about shame? What messages? Okay. All right, we'll take 10 and then we're going to do something else. So what time is it? It is 10:30. We'll meet back at 10. Because we're just investigating here at a pretty high level, 2 major emotions. I thought about breaking them apart and just doing anger one week and shame the next. I probably should have. There's so much to both of these. What I think is important to do next, and what I hope feels like the kind of natural, kind of intuitive movement here, is we've just started naming and understanding that these 2 really afflictive emotions that we have, that we call anger and shame, that we come by them honestly, that there's a reason that we experience them, right? That there's a function, that they have a function, that all of us experience these. If we're pretty aware, we'll notice we experience them every day. Every day we'll have an experience of shame. Every day we'll have an experience of anger. For most of us, many every day. Large ones, very, very, very small ones. These emotions obviously are on a spectrum. But we experience these every day. It's part of our human experience. So that's one of the things we've said so far. It's part of our human experience. Not going to change. Humans will feel these things, right? Just like humans are going to feel cold when they go outside when it's winter, and they're going to feel hot when they go outside when it's summer. We're not asking those things to stop. We're not asking pain to stop. We're not asking these emotions to stop. They won't. But what we are interested in now, because this is mindfulness, is I'm interested in my relationship with them. I want to know what my relationship is like with these two things, right? Like my relationship with cold. How do I learn to dress appropriately? Like my relationship with heat. How do I learn to dress appropriately? Can you feel? I'm just working with the thing that is here, because right relationship means I can live with both of those things in a healthy way. I can have a healthy life in a hot climate because I know how to plan for heat and dress for heat. I can have a healthy life in a cold climate because I know how to dress for cold. Do you feel it? I'm going to have shame today. I'm going to have anger today. Okay. Lots of other stuff's going to arise too, but those two guaranteed. And so, what's my relationship like? How quickly do I recognize it? What do I understand about it? Is there something that it's trying to tell me? Is there something I can learn? Can you feel it? That's what mindfulness is. You don't change the thing. You just change your relationship to the thing. So I am going to guess, because I'm in a group of human beings, that our relationship with anger, my relationship with my anger, my relationship with my shame, Leah's relationship with her anger, Leah's relationship with her shame, right? Erica's relationship with their anger, Erica's relationship with their shame. There have been times when that has been a helpful relationship that has helped me. And there have been times when that relationship has not gone well, and my relationship with that experience has hurt me or hurt someone else. And so now I want to start to notice that. I wonder what a loving and correct relationship with these things looks like and feels like. And I'm going to start by looking at what I've done in the past. Can I think of an example of a time when my relationship with my anger really helped? I listened to its message. I was able to act or do something skillfully because I was listening, because my relationship with it was correct. Can I find examples in the past of a time when my relationship with my anger was not helpful? I didn't see it, and I acted out of it, and it caused suffering to me and to other people. Do you kind of get it? Same thing with shame. Have there been times when it, like Suzanne mentioned, gave me an important message about, are you doing something? Like, you just stole money from her purse. Oh my God, right relationship with shame would be recognizing what that is, what that emotion is, what it's trying to tell me about the thing that I just did, and go, oh, it's my conscience now, right? And when my relationship with shame was unskillful, right? Maybe when I hurt somebody to try to get away from my feeling, or maybe when I believed a narrative that wasn't true. So that's what we're looking at. And I was thinking we should break up into groups, little dyads, just for a few minutes here, to give everybody a chance. I want everybody to get a chance to be able to share something with someone else. And so it isn't going to take very long to do this, because we have a couple just very simple questions. How has my relationship with anger helped me? How has my relationship with anger hurt me? How has my relationship with shame helped me? Hurt me? You can pick any one of those you want, more than one if you want. But if we just take like 5 minutes for each person, in just a few minutes, we'll have an opportunity to listen to one another and to be heard. And of course, in a setting like this, we know why we're here. We're here for mindfulness, and that means no judgment. There's curiosity and receptivity. No one needs to give advice. No one needs correction. We can just bear witness to one another. That'll give us a chance to all be heard. And then we'll come back in the big group, and we'll see what connections we made, insights we had, that kind of stuff. Sound good?
I guess I need to speak for masculine energy a little bit. I think,
Yeah.
we're kind of conditioned that we've got two buckets of emotions we carry, and one is very acceptable, and it's to be shared, and it's to be displayed frequently, and it's all the good emotions. And then we've got a bucket of these other emotions where we have them, but you don't share them. You don't even look in that bucket. You carry it. But of course, being a male, it spills out all the time because it's full. So you're walking around in it and kicking it around, and it gets displayed in all these kind of distorted, confused ways. And then we get to win too, because we get to die first, because we've not really dealt with who we are. So, we get to check out first. So that's our value for not displaying ourselves and really not being present in who we are.
So, so the reward for a lifetime of suppression and rotting away from the inside is I get to die earlier. Wow, you guys, this got dark. What's going on with this group? What? There's dark humor and then there's dark humor. Yes, what a human thing you've just described. Men walk around with buckets that are overflowing. Women walk around with buckets that are overflowing. What's acceptable and not acceptable in each of those buckets is a little different. There is certainly a gender component. There's also certainly a family component. I've talked to lots of people over the years who's like, oh no, mom got to be angry and no one else could. Okay, in that family, mom got to be the one and dad had to power and be small. Oh, there's a family that's an exception to the rule. Oh, in that family, dad was really, really weepy because he was a constant victim because he was scared of everybody and everything. And so everybody's job was to take care of him and go, oh, you're okay, you're okay. Oh, and that's how he got his needs met. That's actually how he got big and took up a lot of space, was his big feelings. And so there again, we're breaking the rule that dad got to be sad because it was his tactic for getting his needs met, blah, blah, blah. But it's so important for all of us that we're curious enough today to notice there are some really, really big universal trends that seem to go across time and culture that do have to do with social conditioning and gender. Makes sense. And then there's microcultures, that religion, that race, that country, that time. There's a lot of stuff that's acceptable now that was not acceptable during the 1940s. How many times have we heard, yeah, Grandpa was in World War I. Oh my God, what was it like? I don't know. Never said a word. Refused to even talk about it. The most central shaping experience of his entire life, he's not allowed to say a sentence about it. Wow. So you can see we've even evolved a little bit. Well, now we have groups. Now we have support groups. Now we have PTSD therapists that are designed to do, oh, we recognize this pattern in a culture really, really hurts us. So family culture, religious culture, racial culture, all this stuff. We have come together today to be curious about our own conditioning. And I know we've only scratched just the top surface of two really, really, really pervasive emotions. We can circle back to this, you guys, whenever you want. There's a lot more to see here. But what I'm happy about is everybody here has named, I can see why I have the thing. I can at least understand evolutionarily, biologically, socially, and personally why the thing called anger shows up in me. It shows up every single day. A big way or a small way, somewhere in between. It's present. I'm just more aware that it is present and that there's something trying to happen there, right? And that how I relate to that is going to make a huge difference to me and to the world, right? Shoving it down isn't helping. Acting it out and hurting others isn't going to help. So there must be something else, right? There must be something else. Same with shame. So the thing you guys are offering the world today, as we're getting close to ending our meeting and you're walking out into the world, is you're heading off and you're aware. In my human body, because of my human experience, I'm experiencing these two things today. This is part of what's happening. And I'm hoping that your hands are open, right? That you're not guarded and that your heart is curious. Because of course we're talking about something that we need, but we're also talking about a form of suffering. And I hope that brings a softness. Anger is suffering. It's necessary, but it's hard to feel it. Shame is suffering. Necessary, there for a reason, but it's hard to feel it. So I know this is a spiritual truism and I know it's sometimes hard to hear, but suffering is a jewel. Human suffering is a jewel. You are a spiritual being, and in a few decades, your human body and your human life are gone. But you're a spiritual being, right? Your consciousness. You can call that whatever you want. We can go into religion or not, but your consciousness, your life, your aliveness, your Buddha nature, your divine energy, that's what you are. That's your essence, your consciousness. And so for a few short, precious decades, you get the opportunity to experience this animal from the inside. Its muscles and its movement, its hunger, its cold, its hard bones and its soft muscles. You experience strength and weakness, hunger and thirst, loss, loneliness, belonging, inclusion, humor, right? That's incredible. That's a miracle. And all parts of that are a miracle. All parts of that are a miracle. Some part of you believes me. Some part of you knows this. Some part of you has always known this. So your suffering is part of that. It is a jewel, and its many facets are just parts of you. They're parts of this human experience that you're having so temporarily, right? Those little parts of you that your suffering shows you are really intimate. They're incredibly private. They're very, very personal, because those are all the places of your loss and your hurt, your wounding, right? But they're also connected to your hope. Look at today, your growth. Oh my God, can you feel the intimacy of that? Without our suffering, we couldn't connect to each other. We couldn't connect to anything if we didn't feel. We couldn't. Feeling involves feeling. That's why we feel different today, even about the faces who are here today, even about each other. We feel different than we did 2.5 hours ago. We do. Because we just spent 2.5 hours connecting to our suffering, right? Our wounds are very sensitive. They're openings into our deeper self. That's why we practice. They're pathways to intimacy with ourselves, and that allows us to connect to others. So I'm just telling you something you already know. It's a miracle. Your suffering is a miracle. And I know it's instinctual to push it away. I know it's instinctual to wish it was away. I know it's instinctual to wish it would end. I know it's instinctual to do what we all were taught to do, which is amputate that experience. Don't be present to it. Wish it was gone. Hide it. Run. Cover it. Numb it. I know. I want to do the very same thing when I'm in my small heart. Oh, but with practice, with friends like you, I remember my big heart and go, oh yeah. Oh, I can at least touch it. I can at least touch it. This incredibly sacred thing. Wow. What a beautiful opportunity. So let's spend at least the last couple minutes, shall we? Sitting. We can end with just a short sitting today. Yeah, let's see if we can gather ourselves up, pull our energy in, sit for just a couple more minutes today, and then I'll do a couple announcements and we'll go our separate ways. But let's end by just coming back to the body, coming back to that reassuring stability of our breath, and just being with this, being with whatever it is you're experiencing today with as much tenderness as you can, okay? I'll ring the bell. We'll just sit for a couple minutes.